What I want to discuss is, or talk about, is this particular rifle. I'm not really a collector of guns. I like firearms that I can use daily. This particular rifle is a favorite of mine, built by a local fellow here, and the barrel was locally made too. The gun was built probably in the early 1980s. I'm only the second owner, so I feel very fortunate to have this rifle. Guns like this don't come cheap. You won't go out and just buy one of these off the shelf. To buy a rifle of this quality, you are going to spend thousands of dollars. Back in the day when we were shooting muzzleloaders, it was difficult to find a good rifle builder. And a rifle like this might cost $1,500. Today I traded a panhead Harley Davidson basically for this rifle, and I do not feel like I lost in the deal. The rifles are custom made, so they're built by hand. That's why the price is up there. Most gunsmiths don't get what we would consider a living wage for building a rifle like this. If it was such a deal, this rifle would be worth $20,000. As it is, you could probably buy one for $5,000 or $6,000. A year's wages.
Year's salary.
Yeah. Yeah, all the money you could possibly scrape together in a year would probably go into the purchase of a rifle like this. But in those times, this was not a luxury item. It was a necessity. Like, we'll spend $60,000 on a brand new pickup or car because we need one. They would spend a year's wages on a good rifle. And on the frontier, a rifle might only last 2 years. Because of the conditions, the weather, the living conditions. They were going through a lot of rifles back then, a lot of guns. It wasn't uncommon to hear the description of some hunter, trapper, Indian with a rusty old rifle. A lot of them didn't even work, but they carried him. It was a status thing. It's a pleasure to shoot. It's a copy of a late Flintlock period English sporting rifle. A rifle like this wouldn't be your average everyday person's gun. It would belong to a gentleman. It would have come over to the United States probably through an English company, say like the Hudson's Bay Company or the Northwest Company. The time period for this gun is 1820 and before, late 1700s, probably 1800 to 1820 would be a safe bet. It fits my persona. I'm a member of the American Mountain Men Association and a local muzzleloading club, so I have a persona, and my persona follows my ethnicity, Scottish. I could have come over with the company, worked my way up as a clerk. I would have been able to afford a finer gun. This is most likely the style of rifle I would have had. I have documentation for guns like this in that very same time period for people just like me. It's an absolute pleasure to shoot this rifle. The balance on these things is phenomenal. They're designed to be shot offhand. It's not uncommon for the better shooters to shoot 150 to 200 yards with a rifle like this and kill their game offhand shooting. They're not something you want to underestimate. They're not just a toy. They're not just a wall-hanging gun. I use mine. The fellow that built the rifle is actually offended if you own one of his guns and you don't shoot it or don't use it. I won't hunt with anything else. It's my go-to rifle when I want to hunt and fill the freezer with meat. The caliber on this rifle is .54, which was a pretty standard caliber. I shoot 80 grains of 3F black powder. I don't believe in synthetics. Black powder is just fine. It's easy to clean. It's not as corrosive as the synthetic powders. And it does the job. I shoot absolutely traditional patched round ball. all my clothing matches the time period for this particular rifle. It's got a very fine walnut stock, a premium grade walnut stock, with the the checkering, the wood, the design of the gun is very typical of a late Flintlock period English sporting rifle. The barrel was built here in the valley by Les Bosca. Les Bosca has since passed on. He had a reputation for building some of the finest custom barrels in the country in his day. Muzzleloading barrels weren't his specialty, but he did build a few for the local fellas. The lock itself is English style roller lock in a deer's egg pattern. This style of lock was in huge demand during the fur trade days because they were high quality locks. When the American Fur Company would order rifles under contract, they specifically asked for English roller locks. This particular lock, it was described as a roller lock. A roller because down here on the base of the frizzen on the spring there's a tiny little wheel. This meant for much faster ignition on the rifle. The English were producing these particular locks. They were in high demand. The American Fur Company would specifically ask in their contract rifles that they got English roller locks. This is a deer's egg lock, which was the fellow that manufactured the lock. But the style of lock was a English roller lock. They were higher quality locks. The ignition on these, when the gun is tuned and everything's just right, is incredibly fast. It's fast enough that they're easier to shoot accurately offhand. They're not as fast as a centerfire rifle, of course, but I would say they're comparable to any percussion gun. You can shoot this rifle upside down. The internal part of this lock that makes it special is the fact that it has what's called a fly on the tumbler, and the fly allows for a more sensitive trigger pull, in that as you squeeze the trigger, the sear, when it comes out of the notch, will glide over the half cock or safety notch without catching, and so you can give yourself a much lighter trigger pull. My trigger pull is probably around 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, which under any circumstances that I would use it, that's plenty light for trigger pull. I don't know if we can see the spark in the sunlight here, but it's not much of a trigger pull, which is actually very nice for offhand shooting. You won't pull the gun off sight. It's quite fast.
Nice.
I can smell it. I can't see it. The parts of the lock here, the old name for these parts, this is the cock. The frizzen was called the battery. The concept is powder goes in the pan, it's covered by the battery. This is put back to what we call full cock. And it's basically flint and steel. So when you squeeze the trigger, you have white hot sparks. The pan flashes, and the heat from the pan creates the ignition in the charge. We don't actually want a fuse effect where the pan goes off and it burns into the powder charge. That's not how it works. It is the heat from the flash of the pan that ignites the powder. If we had the fuse effect, you'd have a much slower ignition.
You've been trapped. Oh, hang fire.
So the rifle goes off. In other parts of the video, you'll see the rifle go off. Sometimes it goes off incredibly fast. Sometimes there's a lag. A hang fire is what we call it. The lock's getting dirty. They do require maintenance. A flintlock rifle is something with personality. You can have the exact same rifle built by the same person with the exact same parts. They will not be the same rifle. Each one will have its own special qualities. The style of gun would have been owned by a gentleman, somebody that produced a little bit of money, a clerk or a trader from a trading post. It was very common to engrave the metal on these guns. Very few rifles were ever built that didn't have engraving. It was sort of standard issue. There is engraving from the butt end of the rifle, and we have the checkering on the wrist. We have engraving on the tang and breech area. We have underneath here on the trigger guard, we have quite a bit of engraving. This also would have been standard. Then we come up on the forearm, and of course more checkering. This has a hooked breech on the barrel. You can't really see, but you notice where the barrel comes back here, and then you'll find this line, and then the rest is the bright metal. When you knock out this key up here on the forend and you pull the ramrod, you can actually lift the barrel out of the breech for cleaning the rifle. Very, very convenient. Cleaning the rifle should be as much of a pleasure as actually shooting the rifle. Handling the gun is a great thing, whether you're cleaning it or shooting it. I just enjoy handling the rifle. It's just a great pleasure. Cleaning of a muzzleloader is not a complicated process. A lot of companies will try and sell you all kinds of fancy cleaners and powder dissolvers and what have you. I've found the absolute best thing for cleaning black powder out of a rifle is Windex and hot water. Or even just hot water. It'll dissolve the fouling and it can be scrubbed out of the bore. And of course wiped down, and it's a clean gun. You lightly oil the barrel again and hang it on the wall. In my opinion, to really appreciate a rifle like this is you have to take it out and use it, and not just take it out on the shooting range and shoot, but you have to take it out and hunt with it. And the experience of filling tags with a rifle like this is one that you can't describe with words. It's quite a sense of accomplishment. And in the last 25 years, I've never used a centerfire rifle for hunting. I think in the last 25 years I've probably killed 30 plus deer with a flintlock rifle. Some of them much more crude than this. But each one of them, whether it was a doe or a trophy buck, were all trophies. I mean, there's a real sense of accomplishment with filling a tag with one of these rifles.
You hit the...
I hit point of aim.